Welcome to another edition of Ask Away Wednesday with James and myself. This series is where we take questions that we hear often in the field and we answer them. And if you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to comment. We would love to hear more. Today's question is, what caused such a high uptick in organizations starting data governance in 2023? James?
I think that what we are seeing is we're seeing a maturing of the cloud data migration starting to happen. We talk about always 10 years ago, the first cloud migration wave was applications, right? So taking my appliances and moving them up to EC2, taking things and making it serverless that were not before. I think we're in the second wave of the cloud migration right now, which is data. And you're seeing this with platforms like Snowflake and Databricks and others. But typically, when you start with these types of platforms and projects, there's a long initial period where you're just getting used to everything. You're working on your tooling. You're figuring out how you're going to actually get data up in there. How quickly do you need that data to be changed? Can it be nightly refreshes? Do you need more like CDC type capabilities? And so I think a lot of the early projects and Snowflake is doubling their customer count every year or something. So I think they're at 8,000 or something now. So, in the last year, between 2,000 and 4,000 companies have purchased Snowflake. So that's a large number of companies that are just kind of starting in their data journey. And if you go back another year, there were half, again, as many starting. So I think it's just a matter of where you are in your maturity. As the platforms like Snowflake and Databricks start getting into the fast follower, section of the adoption curve, these problems are starting to come up now for these folks. And, might go back to another question that we had in a previous episode around DIY. I think another reason why we've seen a high uptick is very similar to the ETL space. Folks initially did their own ETL jobs with Python, right, and Snowpipes and S3 and dbt, and all those tools kind of stuck together. But at some point you start dealing with timeouts, you start dealing with retries, you start dealing with poor documentation. So when you try to onboard a new ETL engineer, it's difficult to kind of describe the pipeline. And so I think just like the ETL space went through a maturity where folks move from those kind of pure DIY projects into more productized solutions. I think we're seeing the same thing in data governance now. We're just, a year or two offset from where ETL is. So I think that's another thing that we're seeing is those homegrown solutions are starting to not be able to withstand the scale. And so folks are beginning to have to build platforms like Alter in order to make it work. So I think those are the two reasons why we've seen it so far this year, Chris.
And complementary to your first point, maybe, I also think the platforms are really lowering the barrier to entry, which is just naturally increasing demand. 10 years ago, if you wanted to get the level of insight out of your data that you're able to get with platforms like Snowflake, you had to have a Hadoop cluster or something like that, and a Spark cluster and HDFS, and you had to have infrastructure to manage all that and people to manage those infrastructures. Now you just write your queries and go. So the accessibility to that type of platform has really kind of allowed for growth and investment at very sizable and relatively tolerable amounts compared to what was previously accepted as standard, which I think is just causing organic growth in the industry. But that's kind of my thought as well. So hopefully that answers the question. We'll be here next week to answer other questions. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.